None of your business, kid. Gio was annoyed. He watched as Court took another hit. There was no sympathy, he did this to himself. Court stumbled into the arms of Mitch's friends. When their hold lingered on his arms, Gio stood up straight. It was all Ty needed. His phone slid into his back pocket. You know one day it's going to fall out, Gio had been referring to his phone. He shrugged as they made their way to the fight, but it's habit. I like my back pocket. Said no one ever. Laughter accompanied the words. It's a terrible place when you're in a fight. Behind them, he could hear Tanner creating a distraction for Todd by asking, "Who are you?" Todd, nervous and timid. Tanner snagged his opportunity. You involved with any clubs yet, Todd? Ty was addressing the fighters. You want to make this a real fight, I'm in. All you had to do was ask. What do you think we're doing? Arrogance laced Mitch's tone, was starting to take it personally that you were ignoring us. With that arrogance in his smile, Mitch came right at Ty. The jab Mitch threw was easy to dodge. Ty had a hold of the arm. Pulling it wide gave Ty the opportunity to roll inside the arm and slam his elbow to Mitch's jaw. In the background, Tanner was pressing, "Give me your phone. You're a part of the drama club now, kid." Mitch stumbled back, and then came back in. A light touch held the injury. Man, I have work coming up. Tanner called out, I'm claiming him for the drama club, so don't ruin his pretty face. Fight better then, Ty mocked. Says the rugby captain who caused more injuries last season than in previous years combined. Mitch laughed as he dodged Ty's fist. I wasn't captain last year, Ty reminded him. Better be prepared for worse now that I am. Damn, shouldn't have voted for you then. Mitch didn't sound at all serious. Why didn't you toss your name in? There was genuine surprise. I would have voted for you if you had. Nice to know, but I like being a winger. Someone's gotta pick up this guy's slack. He'd been referring to Court, who made a feint. Sounding insulted, Court questioned Mitch, how did you go to fighting him? You were fighting me. Oh Court, you're just a secondary character, was the taunt. Jerk, Court laughed. Over his shoulder, Court asked Tanner. What's the project this year? It's big. Tanner's excitement was in his sparkling eyes. And there's a freaking lot to get done. So, we could really use the help. You can drop dead right there. Ty looked straight at him. Everyone except Todd had a grin. Tanner was entering information on Todd's phone. Here's the location, kid. We meet at 7 tonight. Be early. I'll have the forms for you. Forms? Todd was trying to look at his phone as Tanner continued. You good for 7, Mitch? Tanner asked. Mitch then looked to Ty. Taking a swing, when we starting practice? Ty dodged and returned. We can start tryouts next Tuesday, if you guys want. I don't see the point in waiting. Course you wouldn't. You don't have to worry about studying or a ridiculously heavy extracurricular schedule to juggle, Court pointed out with a touch of envy. He took a hit to the shoulder that looked more painful than intended. There was a wince on the face of Court's opponent, but no apology this time. Manage your time better. Gio gave the usual reprimand just as he struck the guy that had hit his brother. His friend caught him before he stumbled to the ground. Tanner's amused voice reached them. Campus security is on the way. You called security? Ty glanced over. He had Mitch's fist in his hand to block it. Mild had been his tone. Tanner showed his cell, shaking it to indicate the importance. Live feed on the university page. Coming from one of these phones. I didn't have to do anything. They glanced about at each other, silently weighing their options. Mitch was the first to break the moment with a nod. See you on the field later, Court. Course, Court nodded with a grin. They clasped hands and pulled each other into a half hug. Mitch nodded at Tanner. Mel will be back in a month. Make some time if you can. There was a responsive nod from Tanner and easy compliance. Of course. See you guys. Mitch and his friends waved as they moved off. Looking at his friend, Ty wanted to know, you sure that's a good idea? Seeing Mel again? Tanner, always an easygoing guy, softly laughed the concern off. We broke up because our love wasn't romantic. But we still love each other. It's called being an adult. You should try it sometime. Funny, Ty's remark held mock amusement. Todd's timid voice reached out. Weren't you in a fight? Court was baffled. With Mitch? They were headed to the quad, a central open area filled with picnic tables that was used as a primary meeting spot by the students between classes. Court was explaining to Todd. That's just Mitch and his friends. We used to play rugby together back at my old school, but became rivals when I transferred to yours. He's still a little sore at me. You sold him out for another team. Ty pointed this out with half a smile. A better team, Court clarified with humor. And that's why you have a black eye now, Gio informed him. But you still got my back. Hands in his jacket pockets, Court had an arrogant air about him. That's what being a brother means. Dumbass. Gio's bangs fell into his eyes when his head dropped to the side to drop the look that accompanied those words. They were claiming seats at one of the tables. The afternoon sun was at full power and there was no breeze to help cool them off. A cold drink after that encounter seemed like a good idea. He was considering making the suggestion. But something had his attention that put the idea on hold for a moment. Tanner was back to his primary focus. I'll be working on the production before the others get there. So come by whenever you can, Todd. I've put my number in your phone. Todd beamed. Gio rolled his eyes. Don't be flattered. His bar is low. I'm surprised he doesn't hand out his number at orientation, Court mocked. I heard you tried to hand out yours, but no one wanted it, was Gio's quick comeback. Tanner leaned closer to Ty. I take this personally, but I don't really think this is about me. Ty grinned, but his eyes were elsewhere. Todd was shaking his head earnestly. Court talks you up all the time, Tanner. I couldn't wait to come to this university to meet you. Did my brother forget to tell you what our reputation is? Gio glared over. Peeved, Court shrugged off the statement with a laugh. A bad rep is a badge of honor. Ty and Tanner laughed quietly at him. Gio pulled his brother's head into a headlock as he scolded. Being a social outcast is a choice. Why are you pulling good kids into your mess? Let him have a normal university experience, dumbass. Who wants to be normal? Court was trying unsuccessfully to pull away. We've got the cool factor. Who does? Gio pressed harder into the thick head of hair. I do. Court wasn't backing down. With a chuckle, Tanner turned his attention to Ty. Speaking of the it factor, are you sure you won't join the drama club? We have a perfect role for you. I don't act. Ty gave him a dry look. You wouldn't even have to with this role, he was trying to tempt. It was not working. Ty shook his head as he looked away. Fine, Tanner gave up. But you're missing out. Are we putting on a play? Todd asked eagerly. I was always helping out the drama club in high school. There's lots I can do. Right, Court? Tanner's warm smile could put anyone at ease. He was flashing it now for Todd's benefit. We're working with the AV Club to produce our university's first series. Wow, you're making it a series? It wasn't surprising that Ty was surprised. Are you an idiot? With a grin, Tanner nodded. We figured a single short movie wasn't giving the story enough credit. And I'm making a name for myself. Slow was Ty's nod. Then it's really a good thing I turned you down. Oh. Come on, Tanner laughed. You could be famous. Prefer to be infamous, he countered. Your reputation so important to you that you can't help your brother out this once? My representative means shit all to me, and you know that, brother. Todd seemed to hesitate. They looked at him as he forced the words past a tight throat. Are you really brothers? Like Gio and Court? Do we look related? Ty asked rhetorically. Tanner had his arm around Ty's shoulders. Not by blood. By choice, Ty affirmed with a bored look that was out on the crowd. Todd's smile grew a little bolder. Court, Ty's attention was elsewhere. Your future girlfriend is about to need help. Cries was attempting to make her way through the crowds. She hadn't yet seen them. Heavy textbooks were held close to her chest in tight arms. A shy smile touched her young face. She had the look of an easy target. A familiar vulture had already spotted her. Leaning against a table, Kurt was eyeing her up. The leech clinging tightly to his arm noticed, and she was not happy that his attentions were wandering. An evil light emerged in her narrowed eyes as she spoke loud enough to be heard clearly. You into little girls, Kurt? There's nothing wrong with inexperience. The suggestion was heavy. Cries was aware that she was being talked about. Her soft eyes were looking directly at Kurt. Ty felt his phone vibrate. So he pulled it out of his pocket. In his peripheral, he kept an eye on what was his. On the phone, he was already typing a response. I'm gonna fucking kill him. There was no joking in Court's tone. Gio moved with his brother. But an outside force was closer than they were. Though walking by seemed purely coincidental, a hard look was shot Kurt's way. Soft curls kissed by the afternoon sun didn't soften that expression any. Strong shoulders, hugged by the fitted sleeves of a t-shirt, conveyed bored annoyance in his posture. Lost to the din and distance, they could not hear the remark that brought anger to Kurt's face. What the hell? Court had faltered, seeing someone else step in. Ty had an arm around Court's shoulders. Your future girlfriend just met my future boyfriend. What? Court uttered the word with blank confusion. When did this happen? Gio's hands were turned up in confusion. Tanner was smirking. Jazz is going to kill you if she isn't the first to know. From the side, a timid voice questioned. But aren't you dating Jazz? It was enough to pull all their eyes. It was Gio that asked with a deadly edge, what the hell gave you that impression? But Todd stammered, taking a step back. It's just, everyone says so. And they touch. You're about to be touched, Gio told him. Easy, Tanner laughed. He explained, Ty and Jazz are family. Not lovers. Like real family. Or like what you guys are. Again, the looks given were baffled as well as annoyed. Court voiced that annoyance. What's the difference? That's why he's not a part of our group, Gio told Court. Then he moved off to intercept cries. Because of the distraction, Ty had missed the encounter. The guy with the curls was moving off. Cries was edging away from a furious Kurt. Whatever had happened, Kurt wasn't going to forget it. Kurt soon realized that Ty's eyes were on him. Shifting that hatred, Kurt now glared at him. He returned the look until Kurt stormed away. In the safety of the family she hadn't asked to be a part of, Cries was smiling warmly at Court and Gio. I'm okay, really. I think he's just mad because of what I said this morning. He's not someone to brush off. Court was rightfully worried. From now on, you don't walk anywhere alone. Here, give me your phone. Dazed, she still followed the request. Her phone unlocked, Court began entering his info. Call me when you need to move between classes. Or are leaving anywhere. She hesitated as she thought something through. I will. Thank you. Come on, I'll walk you to your next class. He held out his arm to her. But you were going to walk me to my class. Todd sounded wounded. The grin over Court's shoulder was unapologetic. You're nowhere near as hot. But Todd's plea fell on deaf ears as Court walked away. Worried eyes turned to the others. Hell no, Ty and Gio responded in unison. Tanner stood up. Come on, kid. We're in the same faculty. I'll walk with you. Todd glanced their direction. Tanner had it figured out quickly. Don't take it personally. They're in the opposite direction. Tanner and Todd moved off. Ty and Gio did the same. The crowds were starting to lighten as others made their way to class. Though it was only their second year here, everything felt like routine already. The conversations around them were the same as they walked. Many of the same faces had returned. The grounds themselves hadn't changed at all. And having Gio in the same classes meant this would remain the same this year too. As the sun warmed their backs, Gio asked, how are they doing? He knew exactly who Gio was referring to. Glancing at the phone in his hand, he answered, their agency might be merging with an entertainment outfit. Gio looked confused. Security for their entertainers? He nodded, I suppose so. She didn't get into it too much. I hope they do really well. Gio's hands moved to his pockets. He said nothing, which Gio picked up on. You're worried about them. Not so much my sister. A partial laugh escaped on a breath. You know they're older than you are, Gio pointed out. They're supposed to worry about you. He gave a sidelong look of annoyance. It made Gio laugh, but also drop the subject. Amid the crowd around them, a camera went off. The target was a good-looking face with a hard expression. Afternoon sunlight sought out thick waves of brown hair kissing it with gold. Angry eyes danced upon a face that was meant to be carved in marble. The bag over his shoulders carried the weight of a memorable jacket, allowing the afternoon sun to warm sculpted arms clad in an old t-shirt and a single wrap covering the left wrist and hand. Next to him, another first year in stylish, form-fitting jeans and a long-sleeved shirt. The stylish guy was busy talking to the friend that held no interest in listening. The direction of the camera had been noticed. As he walked over, warm smiles welcomed him. The young man behind the camera lowered it to properly greet. The woman next to the photographer was casting an appreciative look. Such a good-looking guy. It was no surprise that they'd wanted his picture. We're part of the social committee, was the explanation given. With your permission, we'll post your picture along with other freshies. It's to welcome you all. We'll even have a slideshow going at the Freshie Festival on Friday. I don't see your name tag though. The photographer's smile was pleasant enough. All freshies have to wear it the first week. You would have gotten one at orientation. Oh boy, the friend next to Faded Plaid slumped his shoulders in defeat. Resigned yet interested, his gaze said it all. Can I see? A curious glance was turned to the camera. The soft tone caressed Ty's ear in a familiar yet elusive way. Of course, the girl lightly pushed the photographer's shoulder. Reluctantly, the camera was turned over to a hand sporting a fitted black wrap. Looking down at the screen, there was grudging appreciation. You have a talent. Thank you. I'm part of the photography group. You interested in joining? We're always looking for talent. I don't have any, he muttered rather absently. Come on, don't say that. Everyone has a talent, the girl encouraged. If you're not a photographer, maybe you'd be interested in being a model. The image vanished when deleted. Hey, a half-hearted attempt to retrieve the camera was made. Seeing the deadly look peeking out from the tops of those hard eyes kept the action from being completed. A hand hovered uncertainly in the air. Once assured that there were no other photos, the camera was handed back. The action came with a warning: next time you take my picture, I'll break your camera. The camera was taken back and light fingers treasuring the item. Stylish guy was shaking his head in amusement. Really? Bro? Frustration rested heavy in the look cast sidelong. It was meant as a warning. Whispered comments were emerging. Hearing them, Faded Plaid had a terse reminder for his companion. We're not friends. As he stepped away, the girl slapped the photographer's arm. With a gesture of her chin, she was indicating the actions she felt warranted. Hey, the photographer grabbed an elbow. Ty's narrowed eyes caught the subtle flinch. Tight were the fists locked at his side. The friend made a helpless, concerned gesture meant to pacify. Concern blanketed the single word, bro. An unsuccessful attempt was made to remove his arm from the grip. An attempt to calmly control the situation was made by the photographer. The rules are simple around here. We have respect. Control was taken in a simple shift of posture that placed Faded Plaid into the photographer's space. Your talent saved your camera this time. But I won't be kind again. The arm was dropped. Without another look, Faded Plaid walked away from everyone. He doesn't like being touched, was the explanation given. What the hell was that? Gio sounded irritated. He could have just said no to his picture being used. A grin was on Ty's face. Of course you'd approve. Gio rolled his eyes. Don't take people's photos without their permission. A dry look was cast his way, for Ty was admiring the photo he'd taken without permission. The grin grew. I can back up my actions. And I'm charming as hell. I'd like to see this charming side you speak of, was the taunt that moved Ty to attempt a swing at his friend. Gio dodged easily. Peyton? The girl called out. When the stylish guy glanced back, she asked, that was kind. His smile held laughter. It is for him. He means it about his picture. Don't ever take it. Me, on the other hand. I'll be your willing model any day. The girl was blushing with a coy smile. For the moment, she had forgotten all about the friend with the surly attitude. Ty stared down at his phone. When they began walking, Gio asked, you want to know more about him? Slow was the shake of his head. Not yet. Good, 'cause I'd actually like to attend classes this year. There was a hustle about the homeless center that was familiar. The clatter of food being dished out combined with the friendly chatter of volunteers offering kindness to those who needed a hand. Some gazes were embarrassed. Many were hopeless. Most would not look away from the food they desperately needed. Have you volunteered at homeless shelters before? This was a question asked of him. Cold was the look he cast. Been to a few. It wasn't really an answer, yet it said a lot. The guy showing him around seemed to understand the inference. Or at least, understood enough not to press. With a nod, he changed the subject. We appreciate any help you can offer. There's a sign-up board here in the volunteer room. You can put your name down for any shift. I know school can be a lot. So it's not about how often you can put your name down. Anytime you can come, it's appreciated. They stopped walking. He was looking at the board with consideration. There were a number of names on the list of volunteers. We're good for help today, but feel free to add your name anywhere that works for you. If you have any questions, just find me or one of the other coordinators. I'm going to help out in the line now, if you're good. He nodded absently. All right, well, the guy stepped away. It's really good to have you on the team. Alone, he stared at the board. His right hand picked up the marker. He saw a shift for the next weekend that might work. Nights were a dangerous time, which is why the slots were harder to fill. But he knew how to navigate this world and avoid the dangers present every day. He wrote a name he could remember. The biggest danger was always in a name. He walked away. Behind him, on the board, he'd given his promise for one evening only so far. Staying in the same place for too long was the second biggest danger. But he'd put himself in that particular corner when he decided to go to school. In the main hall, the lineup for food was beginning to grow. Too busy with the numbers of homeless coming for a meal. The coordinators didn't see him leave. He left in peace. As he approached the front door, he made passing eye contact with a familiar face. Plaid boy, the gravelly voice held muted pleasure. Montana, he reached out a hand to the homeless man he'd given his stolen food to that morning. He hadn't regretted the decision at the time. Nor after. The handshake was warm with a desperate note. Montana didn't have a lot of kindness in his life. He would hold tightly to the few moments that came along. Plaid boy, he laughed softly. Maybe he should have gone by that instead of his favorite artist. Letting the grin linger, he made his way to the nearby park. Asterisk at the same moment back at the school the professor droned on. About what, Ty couldn't really have said. He was on his phone staring at the image. His cheek rested against the curled fingers of his left fist. Idly, a finger touched the edges of his phone. Bored was the expression he had captured. Bored with a hint of anger. The more he looked, the more he saw the emotions. Slow was the smile brightening Ty's countenance. Are you even paying any attention? Geo bugged him. His voice was no more than a whisper. Intensely, his reply was amused. Not to the picture. Geo was wasting his effort with the correction. Shaking his head, what's your fascination? But he couldn't answer because he wasn't sure. The guy was hot, which would be reason enough. And yet, he couldn't shake this feeling that there was something more happening. He expanded the image till the eyes filled the screen. He stared down at them. There was a defeated sigh that came from Geo. He nudged Ty's arm. It was only then that Ty realized class was over. He closed the books he hadn't been paying attention to. A blank notebook was absently captured inside the textbook. Geo had his books in his bag. Ty followed him out with his books in one hand. Wanna grab supper on the way home? Geo was adjusting the strap over his shoulder. His nod was one of consideration. Burgers? Sure, was the easy agreement. I'll text Court. He can invite Tanner. Sounds good. They stepped out into the afternoon sunshine. Ahead the quad was alive with people. Ty felt his phone vibrating. Lifting it up revealed the caller. He didn't hesitate to pick up. What's up, Don? Geo glanced over at the name. Ty's look shifted dark. Where are you? Geo continued to text his brother. Coming. He hung up. Before he spoke, Geo was waving him off. Don't worry. Go help your brother. Thanks, man. He nodded. Call us if you need us, Geo called out. I'll pick up the fixings for burgers. Let us know if Don's coming. We'll set an extra plate. Keys in hand flipped about absently as he moved quickly to his car. Don was sitting alone on a park bench, hunched forward with his elbows on his thighs and his hands between his knees. His kid brother looked as stressed as he'd sounded on the phone. What's up? Ty sat down next to his little brother. His elbows came to rest on the back of the bench. The world in the park was a break from city life. Perhaps that was why so many people came here. It was why Don was here. He liked crowds whenever he could be lost in them without having to be a part of them. By nature, Don was a people watcher. The complete opposite of his older brother in every way. Dark hair and dark eyes. That was where their similarities ended for the most part. Don was a skinny teenager with little promise of being more than that when he reached adulthood. Delicate features were more like their mother's. But then, Ty was the odd one in the family. Other than him, all their siblings took after their mother in appearance. Don looked up. A heavy burden was weighing down those slender shoulders. From his lap, Don turned over a crumpled letter. Taking it, Ty's eyes didn't leave his brother. Just read it. It had been a request rather than an order. With an amused grin, he caved. After the first few lines, he stopped. I knew you'd get in. His brother nodded, but his head was dropping. Sort of the opposite of what he should look like. Ty held up the letter. It's shredded. Dad saw it. Again, Don nodded. Thank you for making me apply. At least now I know I could have. You're going. His tone was firm. Don turned worried eyes up to him. Ty, I can't. Someone has to take over for Dad. That someone doesn't have to be you. If I don't, you didn't see him. He was furious. Desperation poured from those sad eyes. But was he pleading for Ty to save him or to forgive him? He held the back of his brother's neck, encouraging him to keep looking at him. Listen to me. You are going to the school you want because this is your life. It's not Dad's. But it's the family business, Don argued. Grandpa started it, and Dad took over. Ty cut him off. And it was Dad's choice to follow in his father's footsteps. Do you really think Grandpa gave him a choice? Don was being the family diplomat once again. Hands on either side of his neck stopped Don from continuing. Ty pressed, his life, his choice. And now this is your life. So, what are you going to choose? I recommend being a disappointment like the rest of us. Living your life as you want. In a constant battle with Dad, Don pointed out. Ty continued, or do you want to be his dutiful clone? Living to make him feel better about the shit decisions he made at your age and was too stubborn to ever correct? That was a mouthful, Don poked fun. You put the letter back together after he destroyed it. It matters to you, right? Don nodded sadly. Learn from the mistakes that he made. Decide for yourself what you want your life to look like. And break the cycle. How do you do it? Don was lost and feeling fragile. This is your first time even thinking of standing up to him, isn't it? Don looked broken because of it. Ty had an arm over his brother's shoulders. Business is business. Family is family. Dad's problem is that he always confuses the two. But you're my family, always and forever, little bro. I'll take care of Dad. You're going to fight with him. Don saw the truth. Ty laughed. What's new then? Ty, I don't want to be the cause of another family fight. Please. Their personalities were as different as their appearance. Don was a peacemaker, a kind soul who wanted to see those around him happy. And he would do what he needed to in order to make that happen. Even if it meant sacrificing his own happiness. Don't worry about it, he ruffled Don's messy hair. Family is family. I know how to keep mine safe. There was worry, but one thing Don had was absolute trust in his brother. He took back the acceptance letter. Go out with your friends tonight. Let loose and have some fun. Celebrate your win, Ty encouraged. We're gamers, Don laughed. He stood up. Thanks, Ty. He nodded, his way of sending his brother off. He watched. But his mind was already moving off somewhere else. Somewhere that felt far in the past. He leaned back. His light fist was the resting point for his temple. He followed his brother's example and began to watch the people about. Almost immediately he had a focus for his attentions. A sketchbook rested on a folded knee, the reason for him being in the park. At his back, the trunk of a large tree. The lack of the jacket was notable because it gave sight to great arms. Hands tightening into fists threatened to break the pencil. An unwavering hard look was filled with darkness and a hint of vulnerability. Ty wanted in on those thoughts. He drank in the moment. Ty's smile spread slowly. It rattled his prey. He could see it within those eyes that couldn't look away and within the lips that parted as though preparing for a kiss. He was spellbound, just like Ty was. But the spell broke the moment a group of people moved past. When they were gone, so was his eye candy. It was only a moment before Ty saw him again. Walking away. A shoulder rolled to adjust the bag over it. Ty's smile and his interest grew. He got up to head back home where his family were waiting for him. Gio's texts had come through that Tanner and Jazz would be joining them. He replied quickly to let them know that Don wouldn't be joining them this time. Looking up one last time, he watched as his interest disappeared deeper into the park. When he got back home, the backyard table was being filled with condiments, chips, and plates. Court's tagalong was there too, helping. From the kitchen inside, Gio asked Ty if he'd checked the burgers. Todd was talking Court's ear off about their first day, asking a dozen questions that Court answered with good humor. Ty moved the last burger off the barbecue onto a plate when Gio came out with beer. He opened 3 and set them on the table. The kid already had a glass of water. How's your brother? Gio made room for the burgers. As he claimed a seat, he got into his school. Sweet. And Dad shredded his acceptance letter. Crappy, Court grimaced. What are you gonna do? Ty reached for a bun. He's going to get out of that house and go to that school. He's too damn talented to waste it where he is. What about tuition? Gio passed him the relish without being asked. Your dad clearly isn't going to pay for it. And your family is far too rich for him to qualify for a student loan. We have a year to figure it out, Ty shrugged. Mom can help, Court made the offer. And then received 2 pointed glares. Ty reminded him, your mom's health comes first. Besides, we're already in agreement. Your brother and sister, you mean? Court grabbed the ketchup Gio was handing over. Ty nodded. How many siblings do you have? Todd asked. Then he looked at Court. Can you pass me the mustard? Way to kill the flow, dude. There was a disappointed frown upon Court's face. But he handed over the mustard. The subject was changed. When is Tanner coming? After some auditions, Court had answered. Then he looked at Todd. Aren't you supposed to be there helping? Eager was the bright reply. I'll be in charge of snacks and refreshments for the cast and crew once filming is up and running. Tanner says the PA is the most important role. Gio interrupted as though Todd weren't even speaking. That gossip site has a poll going to make sure you don't get the lead role. Court's laughter was at Ty's expense. Tanner's been pushing for you. Tanner's an idiot, Ty responded. Curious. He pulled out his cell. Tanner's really cool, Todd spoke up almost in defense. The patio door opened, allowing Jazz to join them. It saved Todd from a reply. Gio was out of his seat to greet Jazz. Court nodded his greeting, and Todd gave a muted wave. After kissing Gio's cheek, Jazz claimed her seat between Ty and Gio. What are the current stats? Court's amusement shone in his expression. You're actually reading this drivel? The phone was taken out of Ty's hand. You read it all the time, he pointed out mildly. Yes, to keep an eye on my boys and manage the gossip the best I can. Muted frustration was in Ty's gaze. Jazz. She kept the phone out of Ty's reach as she began to read. Seriously, what are you thinking? Hey, this one isn't about you? What? Court asked around a mouthful of burger. Someone's been dethroned, Gio was mocking. Who's it about? Todd set his burger down. Ty began pulling a plate together for Jazz. Ooh, the girls in my class are talking about this guy. Jazz was avidly reading. I haven't seen this piece of trash article yet. Who is it? Gio set salad upon Jazz's plate that Ty was holding. No one knows, but he's been seen in a plaid jacket with a wrap around one hand. He snarls at everyone, has no friends, and apparently is a really good artist. You only get a glimpse of it in this photo, but he's a real hottie. What? Gio snarled with disgust. Ty was looking at her in mute question. Getting a decent photo of him is next to impossible. Jazz passed Court the phone. Her plate was set before her. Thank you, my boys. Dangerous too, from what I hear, Court added in lightly as he looked at the lowered phone to see who the article was about. Gio's voice was laced with irritation. That incident was exaggerated. You're welcome, Jazz. When Gio took the phone, Ty questioned, seriously. There was a smirk that emerged. She should see what you've been up to. Holding back on me. Ty? She cast him a quick reprimand. Then her eager fingers were pulling Gio's hand closer so she could see the image he had pulled up. Oh my god, he is hot. Why does he look familiar? I'd love to know that too, Ty muttered without further explanation. So, what's the interest? Jazz asked Ty. She was stealing a chip off Gio's plate. He moved it closer to her so that she could. Jealous or something? He reached across to reclaim his phone. As he did, Court was explaining. Ty's called dibs on him. What? Jazz slapped her hands to the table as she looked at him. The others laughed. He only shook his head, stifling his amusement. The phone was put away. We were having a scuffle with Mitch and his friends. Court spoke around the chips he was eating, when Kurt approached Cries. Worry stole Jazz's smile. Ty rubbed her shoulder. Court continued. Ty's guy stepped in before we could. So, Cries got away while he had Kurt's attention. Seeing the worry that wouldn't go away easily, Ty reassured, she's family now. Don't worry. We'll look out for her. What about your guy then? Jazz looked his way. He answered with an approving smile, he's got Kurt's attention now, and mine. She nodded, needing to trust that they would handle this. Ty helped distract, you remember the guy on the street you thought was hot? After our first run-in with Kurt this year. Her brow furrowed until the memory surfaced. Oh yeah, smoking body, intense gaze. That's him? I don't like him, Gio stated flatly, getting amused grins from the rest of them. Court felt differently. Anyone that makes Kurt that mad has my vote. Just wish I knew what he said to piss him off so much. That doesn't sound like a very good person. Todd's soft comment interfered with the mood. Ty glared. Perhaps intentionally, Jazz lent the kid a helping hand by distracting Ty. I'll ask Cries to get the real story. She'll love the challenge. And it'll keep her close to you guys so you can protect her from Kurt. Also, she'll need to write articles for her class. If you're okay with it. I want to suggest you guys. What kind of articles? Gio took more food from the plate he now shared with Jazz. She was subtly shaking her head. No idea, but I want her to do what her mom would do. Normalize you guys. I'm pretty sure there's nothing normal about us, Court argued with a light tone. But I'll spend time with cries. Your representative could be in danger, Gio taunted. Confident was the grin behind a full mouth. It's fine by me. Ty's attention moved back to his food. Same here, Gio affirmed. But what's the point of that? Todd interjected. Baffled looks hit him silently. If it doesn't matter what others think of you. Oh hey, Court was changing the subject. My old team wants to get together this weekend for a game. You guys in? There were some nods. May we come too? Hot ladies are always welcome. Court's pleased smile emerged. You just want to brag that your friends are hot, Gio accused. It's okay if I come too, right? Todd turned imploring eyes upon Court. Oh sure, Court gave a distracted nod. He's not playing, Ty and Gio said this at the same time. Course not, we'd snap him in two, Court said it as though it were obvious. But we'll need someone to run towels and drinks. What? Todd was lost. Don't worry, Court waved off the concern. His attention was back upon his food. Just think of it as training for being Tanner's PA on set. Oh, okay, he nodded hesitantly. Should we just hit the field at the uni? Ty nodded, might as well. If it works for your friends. I'll find out. The meal and the conversation carried on. This was family to Ty. Good food, great company, laughter. He looked over at Jazz stealing another chip from Gio's plate. Court passed Jazz her salad dressing and passed Ty a napkin. Jazz hid a musical laugh behind a hand at something Gio had said. This was family. Friday came quickly, marking the end of their first week back at university. Just listening to all the crap Jazz and Tanner had to do this week had made him exhausted. It's what made them happy though. So he approved for both of them. Tonight, Jazz had their first student council meeting. You don't need to walk me, Jazz was being polite. He only looked at her as he moved to the front of the car to meet her. Then his arm went around her shoulders. But I am grateful, she laughed softly. The campus looked different at night. But it was a familiar different. Last year, most of their games were late at night. And practice always ran late. Ahead, the warm lights of a building beckoned them. People were moving about, going inside. The student council was a large group, which is why he'd leave her here with confidence. Call me or Gio when you're done. Are you guys meeting Court's friends tonight? He nodded as they stepped down into the street. Then I'll see if Aang wants to pick me up here. We'll come watch you guys play. She already had her phone out and was texting. I don't like you walking around here alone at night, he reminded her, sounding like the older brother he viewed himself as. She nudged him with her shoulder. It'll be Aang, Cries, and I. And maybe we can even convince Tanner to join us after. He shouldn't have to go to the theater after. He's fine with that, but none of them knew how to fight. Jasmine, a female voice called out, interrupting him before he could say this. With a warm smile, Jazz looked over. Tish. The smile faded quickly when Jazz saw Kurt. You remembered, Tish seemed pleased. Though the blushing smile that she held could be partly because Ty had more than just caught her eye. And the eyes of her friends. Having Jazz was like having the best wingman in the world. Girls seemed to trust girls. Too bad he wasn't into what was looking his way. Tish and her friends moved quickly their way. Forgotten and left behind, Kurt sported a dark look which promised violence. Ty held his gaze in warning. Though aware of the silent exchange, Jazz carried the conversation forward. Of course I remember. You were in the group I showed around at orientation. That's right, she seemed pleased. To her friends. This is that lady I was talking to you about. Lady? Kurt ventured an opinion that wasn't well received by Ty. He stood next to Jazz, muscles tense and jaw-locked. Don't take the bait, Jazz whispered. You girls are out awfully late. It's already dark, and dangerous people lurk about. Shouldn't you be headed back to your dorms? You're going to infer that I'm dangerous? Kurt did take the bait. The smile that emerged mocked. I was outright calling Ty dangerous. I hadn't noticed you. Wait, the girls were whispering among themselves. That's the guy the uni page talks about. OMG. Girls, Jazz laughed their comments off. Not everything you read is accurate. Come on, we'll give you a lift to the dorms. But, warm and reassuring was the smile. I told you at orientation. I'm here to help you find your way through the first year. Let's get you safely back to your rooms. They glanced at Ty in silent question. He stared at his enemy. Looks like you won't be scoring yet again. A puff of cynical air emerged from Kurt. I've never heard of you scoring at all. Must be gay or something. In a surprising turn, it was Tish that responded, how anyone identifies isn't any of your concern, unless you're romantically interested. Would you be? Fuck no. Jazz didn't hide her laughter. Come on ladies. Ty unlocked the car doors. The three girls claimed the back seat. Ty was the last. He always made sure Jazz was safe. And he'd take no chances with Kurt. As they drove away, Tish spoke from the backseat, thank you both very much. It was getting a little uncomfortable. Totally uncomfortable, one of the friends remarked with emphasis. Our pleasure. Jazz turned around to face them, I won't spread rumors. Ty muttered, though he was fine with being heard, it wouldn't be a rumor. She cast him a warning look. Then she continued, be careful around campus. Especially at night, there are predators. So stay in large groups and keep each other safe. Okay? Ty looked at her. Though she refused to make eye contact, she saw that look. He received a light slap on his arm in response. Okay, was the response from all three. Ty wasn't sure it was enough of a warning, but his only priority was to keep Jazz safe. When they got to the dorms, he and Jazz walked the three inside. Jazz was continuing to chat. Did you guys know these were co-ed dorms when you applied? Tish was nodding, they're the cheapest because the building is old. Finances. Sort of a deciding factor. Her friend added, but being co-ed only sweetens the deal. The third added, we came from an all-girls school. Girls can be bitches. Laughter, and even Ty grinned. Though his attention was wandering. Jazz told them, I'll walk you three up. I'll be right back, Ty. Glancing her way, he nodded agreement. She would try again to impress upon them the importance of staying in groups and away from Kurt. They went up the stairs. No elevator in this old building. And yet, there was a lobby of sorts. Ty stood in it now. Ahead, within his gaze, was a fireplace and some old couches. A meeting place for people. Once upon a time, this might have been an expensive place. Time and neglect were taking a toll. Ty moved over towards the couches and chairs. Familiar curls were peeking out from the side of the large armchair. He moved through the opening between the chair and couch. Legs were tucked up and his head lay within the folds of his arms, curling him into a tight ball. The familiar plaid jacket covered artistic hands that were smudged with charcoal. The sketchbook rested upon torn and faded jeans. Upon the page were the beginnings of a bare chest, a sculpted shoulder, and a six-pack. The broken end of a stick of charcoal had come to land on his knee. With a pleased smile, Ty had his cell out to capture this image. Happy with his prize, the phone was put away. Arms upon his bent knees, he leaned closer. Okay, fate. I get it. Carefully he took the charcoal and the sketchbook. He flipped the page to a blank one to leave an important message. If you want to know what picture I took, come to the football field sat at 7. P.S. My abs look hot in your drawing. He replaced the book and the charcoal to their previous locations. His finger ran lightly over the soft curls kissing that forehead. A memory fought to surface. His fingers held the curls, toying with them. A furrow appeared between his eyes. Soft were the words that rang familiar, I'm gonna keep you. The football game was in the final stretch. Court's old teammates were powerful. Just the type of challenge Ty enjoyed. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. Fatigue was catching up, but he wasn't about to stop this close to the end. Neither were the others. A breeze helped cool him off. He caught the pass, and seeing his opposition, he made a pass to the faster runner. Gio caught it. Ty ran in his shadow. The hit he took was enough to leave a bruise. But his job was to protect his teammates. His opponent went down hard. When it was sure that Gio had it covered, Ty fell back. Hand out, he offered help to the guy on the ground. That was a hell of a hit you returned. Jan took his hand. That was a hell of a hit you gave, Ty complimented. How's the shoulder? It'll be fine, the concern was waved off. Won't stop me in the game next week. And you help me look good in front of the ladies. Ty smiled at this. A little flirting never hurt, and it would be good for the girl's ego. They moved to rejoin the others. It was the end of the game. Ty took this moment to catch his breath. His hand ran back through his hair and glanced at his watch. It was almost midnight. On the edge of the field Todd and the girls were cheering them on. He glanced their direction, ready to tell them the game would wrap up. But Jazz's thumb had his gaze following its path. Back propped against the wall and feet resting on the ledge, a lone figure claimed the empty stands. In his hands was a sketchbook. The pencil in his light grip danced upon the page. Excitement gave him a predatory focus. Ty walked up and heard Todd talking excitedly with the girls, but Court plays rugby. He's really good at it. The boys like all kinds of sports. Jazz was patient in her explanation. A dark gaze flitted to the players on the field, perhaps not seeing what he expected. There was a subtle look cast about. The moment Ty had those eyes on him, he smiled. The eyes were back to the page as though he hadn't noticed. The action did nothing to deter Ty. He moved past Jazz with a touch on her shoulder. Then he hopped the ledge to the bleachers. Sneakers kept Ty's steps silent as he approached. Tired legs claimed a seat. Distrusting eyes looked up furtively. It would be impossible not to react to that look. He was only surprised by the intensity with which his emotions hit. He smiled lightly despite them. If you're gonna use us as models, isn't it only fair to show us the finished product? There was consideration. It seemed that he didn't consider trying to lie when he finally replied. It's not finished yet. He liked the honesty in that. He felt his grin grow wider, bringing a sparkle to his gaze. Can I see anyway? Again, the silent gaze considered him. Depends. You gonna show me the picture you took? The look was direct, but the fingers behind the sketchbook twisted nervously. Pleased, he pursed his lips in denial of the request. It's payment for drawing me without my permission. Consent matters, you know. I didn't consent to extortion to get me out here, was the quick reply meant to hide a note of fear. So, it is me you were drawing, he gleefully pointed out. There was a moment of panic flashing into those eyes. He wouldn't look Ty in the eyes, never said that. The picture could be anyone. It's just for class anyway. He was enchanting when he was being cagey. Ty leaned closer. Show me yours and I'll show you mine. What do you need a picture of me for? Hard were the bite to the words. What do you need one for? He looked from the tops of his eyes as his head tilted down. Eyes danced as he pulled up an excuse. I'm an art student. You don't look like the other artists I know. Ty was sizing him up. His tone had shifted back to playful. Imagine how devastated I must feel to hear that. The remark was dry. It amused Ty. He turned over his unlocked cell. Surprise had the hand hesitating. Ty explained. You just gave me something of you. So, do whatever you want with the image. A moment stretched out. If trust was hard, Ty would earn it. He nodded with soft, playful eyes. I'm giving consent. Narrowed eyes held him as the phone was taken. In exchange, the sketchbook was turned over. The image Ty saw had his interest. The image on his phone was being deleted. A scroll through ensured that there weren't multiple photos. He soon discovered the truth. When? You're good, Ty interrupted with an appreciative smile flashing the artist's way. But tell me why my abs are so detailed in your drawing when you haven't seen me without a shirt? The smile he got in return was as unexpected as it was intriguing. No answer was provided. The other picture he'd taken was deleted. Pleased with the response, he moved on. So, do we get paid for being your models? A lifted gaze was the only response. A playful brow was his. The silent battle was conceded when the artist sat back. Ty took his phone, which was being returned, with a careless handoff, though his hand continued to be held out to request the sketchbook back. Ty wasn't done just yet. He flipped the page back to look at other work. Hey, he sat up, making a swipe for the book. Ty moved it out of reach. I feel this is your fault for handing over the book. Stunned silence was the response. There was a ghost of a smile nearly surfacing beneath a facade of annoyance. You can have this back if I get something in payment first, Ty taunted. What? There was a fearless tilt to the chin. A kiss would work. Your name would be nice. Or one of your pictures, drawn or taken. The offers were made. There was silent consideration. OMG. You're considering the kiss. Ty was alight with excitement his voice only hinted at. The smile that couldn't be held back brought a sparkle to his eyes. With a shake of his head, the choice was made. You can have one of my drawings. Ouch, Ty laughed. His hand moved to tear today's drawing out of the book. It's not done yet. I like it just as it is. The page came out with a careful tear. As soon as the book was handed back, the artist stood to leave. He was moving down the bleachers when Ty called out, faded plaid. It was enough to make the artist turn in question. There was a shrug. You haven't given me your name. But I'll still give you mine. It's Ty. I don't care. The look tossed over the shoulder as he turned to leave was unintentionally seductive. From the field the others called out to him. Still, he watched as faded plaid disappeared around the corner of the stands. Only then did he get up to rejoin the others. Jackets and bags were being collected. Ty took his from Court with a nod of thanks. Who the hell was that? Court nodded to where they'd been sitting on the bleachers. Silent was the weighted look coming from Gio. My artist, his smile was cryptic. Maybe I'm jaded by Jade. But I'd expect more flair in artists' clothing. He doesn't look much like an artist, one of the guys voiced, which got laughs from those who knew Jade. I said the same, Ty noted with a nod. What did he say? Curiosity had the better of Jazz. That he wasn't going to lose any sleep over what I thought. I like him, Jazz approved. He held up the artwork he procured. Wow, Jazz had taken the page. She was sharing it with the others. That's really good. This came from one of Court's old teammates. You don't know who he is though? Not yet, he took back the picture. If you make friends with him, let me know if he does commission. When? Court laughed. Ty's got the look that it's already been decided. Poor guy has no idea, Jazz laughed. There was a heavily annoyed sigh from Gio. I'm going to have to deal with this. Aren't I? Suffering makes us grow, Court laughed at his brother. Then shifted the focus. Come on, let's get something to eat. I'm starving. We can razz this guy more once we're eating. You wanna pick a fight you're gonna lose? Ty challenged with a grin. His phone ringing distracted them. Tanner's name was on the display when he pulled it from his bag. What's up? You done the game? I could use a hand. Want anyone else? That's okay. I just need some actual muscle to move some of the heavy props around. Tanner spoke with emphasis, indicating that he was chiding some of the drama club members. Ty hung up and looked to the others. Tanner needs a hand. Should I come? Todd made the eager offer. No, he didn't hold an interest in that. I'll see you guys at home later. Court was consoling Todd as the group began to walk away from him. Later, simultaneous waves were given. He looked specifically at Gio. Watch over Jazz. Like I need to be told that, was the bitter remark. Why don't you ever tell me that? Court stopped walking. It was his brother that answered. Because it's you I'm protecting her from. The banter would escalate at that. With a grin, Ty left them. I want to know who the hell he is. Kurt slammed the side of his fist into the wall he was leaning against. His two friends were with him. He'd always treated them more like lackeys because that's how they acted. It was his power and his money that they stuck around for. But they made good lackeys that didn't hesitate to get their hands dirty, and who were more than happy to pick at the crumbs he was leaving behind. Aaron spoke up. We're not in his faculty. Doesn't look like he has any friends, and he avoids everyone. If I wanted useless information, I'd read those stupid articles. Find out who he is. He's on my list this year. Aaron stupidly muttered, you haven't finished your list from last year. Jazz. Kurt had a hold of Aaron's throat. Tense fingers cut off air as he slammed the body into the wall he'd been leaning against. Fear lit Aaron's eyes as he struggled futilely to pull Kurt's hand away. Leaning in, Kurt cautioned him. I'll deal with Jazz and Ty. But I have plenty of room for others to be on my list. Do you get it? Aaron nodded. A gurgle was the best he could voice. Accepting this as compliance. Kurt released him with a shove. Find out who this artist is. And find out what his weaknesses are. With that order driving them, his two lackeys moved off. It's really late. Do you have a card or something I can give Tanner? The mention of his friend's name is what had caught Ty's ear. Seeing who stood at the doors to the theater is what held his attention. Some unimportant, indignant club member and faded plaid. There was a sparkle in Ty's eyes as he stood back to watch. Do I look like I carry a card? A glare cut through the paper being written on. It's my roommate's number. I'll give him the heads up later. Rude. A sour expression came from the drama club member as he turned to leave. The bitter remark seemed unimportant to faded plaid. Fingers hidden within the jacket slid the notebook back into the bag at his hip. Attention was given to make sure the worn-out button snapped shut. He stepped forward, expending effort to raise a bored gaze slowly. There was the cutest furrow between his brows when he concentrated. Ty's presence was larger than the chest muscles faded plaid now stared at. A point of pride Ty enjoyed exploiting. A blank stare hitting his chest was interrupted by a blink before eye contact was slowly made. They shared a similar height. The cold, Menacing look given earlier to the club member would make faded plaid appear taller, but faced with Ty, that look had been obliterated. He enjoyed this moment. Faded plaid stepped back as the distance between them shrank. Nervously he swallowed, drawing Ty's gaze to sculpted lips. Prey that couldn't move fell victim to a warm hand claiming a stiff neck. Thumb touching a strong chin, tilted the head to his will. Fate keeps bringing us together. I'm giving my consent, Ty whispered. Only a breath apart, he waited for an answer. The pulse under his palm danced. Eyes and breath were still. A subtle nod was the consent Ty had waited for. His whispered words parted tense lips in surprise, giving Ty his opening. Their lips touched. Eyes weren't as astonished as they should have been. It wasn't normal to kiss a stranger like this. It wasn't, and yet, their lips danced. Tongues teased. A sigh brushed skin. Parting lips held a moment longer to one another. Ty's hand left the neck to rest upon a flushed cheek. His thumb moved lightly over those soft lips. There was satisfaction within Ty's gaze. Dazed was the one looking back at him. Pleased, Ty moved off to find his friend. Murmurs from the auditorium reached out. Everyone was looking. The general sense was surprise accompanied by unabashed longing. An unsettled hand moved over lips as faded plaid hurried away. He ignored the looks and murmurs of people that didn't matter to him. But he acknowledged the amused look coming from someone that did matter. With an amused shake of his head, Tanner called him out. What the hell was that? You weren't there at the field, was about the only explanation he would give to that question. That answer surprised Tanner. A question washed over his expression. So, Ty sort of gave an answer. Jazz can fill you in. You said you needed my muscle. Walking together, Tanner let him know, I'm calling what you just did there your payment. Nodding with a smile. I'm okay with that. With amusement still in his voice, Tanner pointed them in the right direction. Last year's props are still here. We can't use them, so I want them put away. No problem. They moved behind the curtain and got to work. A large palm tree was his first grab. It was heavier than he'd expect a fake tree to be. Both hands around the beast, he began tilting. Tanner grabbed the top as it came down. Why didn't you put these away last year? Ty called over. Because it felt like a next year me problem at the time, he defended with a laugh. Next year came quickly. Tanner's phone was going off. Before Tanner asked, Ty stopped walking. Resignation washed over his brother. Yeah, I know. The look of defeat told Ty who it was as much as the shrill voice did. He didn't have to be told that this was Tanner's mom. Mom, I got it. I'll talk to him, okay? After a few more nagging remarks, Tanner was able to hang up. He looked at Ty in apology. He shook his head. Save it. Just work at not answering her calls. She'll just keep calling if I don't answer. This is easier. There was a helpless shrug. He wondered if it actually was. But wouldn't waste time arguing about it again. Tanner knew how he felt, and that Ty would always have his back no matter what he decided. They moved the cumbersome prop to the back room. A treasure trove of discarded props and wardrobe. How was the game? It was good. Court's old teammates are good players. They hit hard, he complimented them. Nice. Tanner was going to say more but his phone ringing again had him distracted. Disappointment washed over him. Walking past, Ty grabbed the phone. Hey, it's past midnight. She should be letting you sleep. You have class in the morning, he reminded as he walked away. Who's the older brother here? Start acting like it. Ty walked backwards giving Tanner a helpless shrug. What's gotten into you? Tanner was laughing at him. He grinned. Still on a high from that kiss. Alright, that tree was the issue. Let's call it for tonight. I can get the crew to do the rest tomorrow. Tanner waved them out. Fine by me, he agreed. He handed back Tanner's quiet phone. I turned it off for you. Oh my God, you are overbearing, he was laughed at. With the last of the crew ushered out, they walked out together. At their cars Tanner said, thanks for your help. I meant what I said about that kiss being your payment. And I meant when I said it was worth it. He grinned just before getting in the car. He drove home with nothing but silence and a memory. He expected the house to be dark when he got home. Instead, the lights outside their home were illuminating Gio and Jazz. The door to the house opened allowing Court and Todd to come out. Seeing Ty's car, Court didn't bother locking the door. His keys went into his pocket. As Ty stepped out, he was instantly harassed. Amusement was a gleam in Court's eyes as he mocked. What's better than one bad boy? Two making out. Why can't I be kissed like that? My knees are weak. I can die happy now. LMBLV. What's that mean? Gio seemed almost pained to ask. But curiosity was getting the better of him. Living my best life vicariously, Cord and Jazz answered simultaneously. I have questions. Gio rubbed his temple.